If you sell marketing services to businesses, then you have probably had a real tough time with them asking you a ton of difficult questions, being quite aggressive, trying to dominate the conversation, and most people completely crumble. Often you shouldn't actually be really answering the questions in the way that you might think that you should do. Okay, so in this little video here, we're going to go into just an extract from some of our training on how we deal with these sorts of questions and how you can deal with these too, so that you will just instantly close more sales. Really just transforms the conversation into a very pleasant experience. Hey, I'm Chris Munch and welcome to DropServe, where we help you land more agency sales without having to do the actual client work. Think about this carefully. What's the reason that the business owner sends you a question over email? You send them like, hey, I got this great thing, and they ask you a question. Why are they asking you a question? So one, they're interested. And number two is they're somewhat unsure. They're not ready to move forward. And they also think they should ask a question because they think they need to gather some information to figure out if you're good at what you do. The reality is, for most business owners, is they have no idea. It doesn't matter what they ask you. They're going to have no better knowledge at the end of it, whether you can succeed for them or not, based on, the information that you give them, right? When I'm talking about like the actual facts and the information and your explanations, they're going to have no idea, right, if it's going to work or not. It's still a complete gamble. This is the reality of the situation for the business owner, okay, because they're not an expert. If they were an expert, they'd already be doing it. They'd already have it solved. So they don't know what to ask. They just feel like they should ask something, right? So that they understand and they're interested, they want the result, and they just want to understand, is this going to get me the result? Can I trust this and move forward? But they can never ask you a question where they're really going to deeply understand what it is exactly and if it's going to work for sure. So they are going to be making a somewhat leap of faith that this is going to work. They do need to understand it on like some level, like of overall what you do, so that they can tick their box and say, I understand what they do, therefore I can buy it. The real thing that they're doing to make the decision is just simply a gut feeling of whether they trust you or not. Okay. And so if we write this down here, of like why are they asking questions, right? What is the purpose of their questions? It's not to actually understand it, because they're not going to be able to, right? It takes too long to really understand it. It's like if you ask a doctor what might be wrong with you, they'll give you an answer, but you don't really understand it. It's not like you could go walk into a lab and find a cure. So essentially they want a grasp of the concept, but not to understand, okay? They don't actually want to understand because that would take too long, okay? They just don't realize that they don't want to understand. They think they want to understand, but really what they really want is a grasp of the concept. And then they want to feel like they trust you. And that's it. That's what they want. A more sophisticated, a more experienced business owner can sniff out if someone can be trusted pretty well. And they also know that they don't need to fully understand what it is that exactly you do, but they understand that they just want to know the concept. So for example, I would say I'm a bit more experienced than the average business owner because the company that I run is a bit bigger. So I know if I'm hiring someone, I don't need to understand exactly what they want to do. In fact, that's something that you get trained as you get higher up in business. If you read books about, running a bigger company, it's like, hey, you're not going to understand everything. You want to hire people and work with people that know it better than you do. So a more experienced business owner does actually understand that they only want to get a grasp of the concept. Okay. And then they need to have that gut feeling that they can trust you based on various signals. A lot of this comes from gut instinct, right? It's subconscious of whether they decide that they're going to move forward with you or not. And so if you understand that you're actually having a subconscious conversation and giving subconscious indirect signals about whether they should work with you or not, that's what they're looking for, right? They're trying to tick some of these boxes in their mind, but a lot of it is just a feeling. And so everything that we do and everything that we show you is actually moving towards the purpose of giving them this feeling, okay? And it's not about trickery, right? It's about actually doing the things that make them feel comfortable and showing and demonstrating that you're capable of what you can do. And often the main thing about this is confidence and trust, that you are confident and instill confidence, and that you are confident so that it gives trust towards them. And essentially you act like someone who can deliver. But when you're not getting the result, when you're getting stuck right, at this stage here, it's probably because you are acting like you cannot deliver. If you are a business owner that can deliver and you care about the result, of course you're going to ask what it is that they want and why they're here in the first place. Of course you're going to do that. Okay, so even though this is a framework, it's just what someone who cares, someone who can deliver would do, right? One thing that separates me from the salespeople on the team is I care more about the business than, say, our team members do. Okay, this is probably pretty normal. It's like at the end of the day, it's my business, they're my customers, but I really care if they're going to stick around, keep paying us. So I really care a lot. And so one of the things I do more than anyone else is just really digging in and asking a ton of questions more than anyone else. And the business owner feels like, wow, this person is more interested in my business than anyone else. And sometimes it's like I'm more interested in their success than they are. Sometimes I'm more motivated than the business owner. The business owner's got like, running through the motions, got a bit tired. They have a conversation with me and I'm more excited about the opportunity than they are, right? And then that gives them that energy because it's like, wow, I can see the potential here. So clarifying why they're here, understanding the problem that they have, pointing out the solution, right? Understanding the past problems and why there were problems and what we can do about it, explaining where we're going to go, selling the vacation, also setting the expectations and explaining away their concerns, all of these different things. This is what somebody does when they care about the business. And so let's remind ourselves here, what is the ARRR framework? So what's the first one here? So agree or acknowledge. So they ask you a question, they make a statement, they bring up a concern, and you agree with it in some way. They could say, your website looks terrible, right? And you look completely untrustworthy. And maybe you don't want to quite 100% agree with that statement, but you can certainly acknowledge it and be like, yeah, I could understand maybe why you might feel that way. So reframe. And so the idea here is that with the reframe, you're taking their question and essentially putting it in a different box. Okay, so you don't really disagree with it, you just move it, right? So it's like, who are you? And the frame of that is, I don't trust you. You want to know who you're doing business with, you agree. And then the reframe is, hey, why don't you go check out my LinkedIn? And you can see that I'm an expert in this. And then it's gone from not trusting to trusting. The reframe is then, I'm an expert, right? Or I deliver this for this industry. Okay. And then the RR here is redirect or repeat. So the repeat is that you might have already asked a question. And if you let them derail you from your question, then, they're leading the conversation. And so if you ask them a question like, hey, what is it that you want to do? And they say, wait a minute, who the hell are you? Right? Then you answer that and then you come back of like, okay, so, now that you know who I am, it's like, what is it that you might be interested in promoting? What service do you want to sell? Okay, so you would repeat it. Or, if it wasn't in that situation or they'd answered your question already, then you want to redirect the conversation where you want it to go through. Okay, so you should be the one in control and you should be taking them through a path, right? And so you're going to be taking them somewhat through this path. And it's really good to do this question-based framework where you're asking questions to take them through this. Okay, so it might be like, hey, what was your past problem? Or when you're labeling the problem, we're like, okay, so would it make sense that one of the things that you really want to do here is actually to grow the number of kids that you have at your dental practice across this particular region, right? And then they might say yes to that. Okay, and so essentially you redirect, and it's really good to do that in the frame of a question. And another redirect that you can do, okay? And so you hear, this last bit is the tricky bit, right? So you repeat your previous question, you redirect to the next part of the sale, right? Which, might be, for example, what they want to promote, for example, or to clarify, exactly what their problem is, whatever it is for the stage that you're at, or you redirect their question back at them, okay? If they say, who are you? And you say, hey, here's my LinkedIn, then you can ask them, you ask their same question back at them, who are you goes to who are you looking for? Okay, who are you, right? Becomes who are you looking for to work with? If they say, what do? You say, okay, well, I do these things, but what is it that you're looking to do? What is it that you want to achieve? So you can always put their question back at them. One of the reasons to do that is the person who's asking questions is the one who's in charge and who's moving the person in the direction that they want them to go. Okay, so it's all about leading questions. But when you ask them like, hey, like, what is it that you want to do? They tell you what they want. And then you can say, okay, great, that's what you want to do. And then you just reframe it, right? If it's not quite what you offer, you reframe it. It's like, oh, I want to do, I want to do deals on Groupon. It's like, okay, well, like Groupon's a great thing. I don't think it's that hard to do Groupon. You can go onto Groupon, you can go put an offer and you can go do a discount. I don't think you need to hire an agency for that. However, what really happens is that people are out there researching the particular products and services that you have, say, such as teeth whitening, and are looking for the best provider of that in a certain area for maybe a certain particular type of person. And when they're doing that research, you want to make sure that you show up. And so, for example, if we went and had a look, like, are you showing up for, say, teeth whitening in, let's say, Santa Monica, and you show that they're not, I'd be like, okay, well, that's a problem that we can help you solve, not just for teeth whitening, but all of the different products and services that you have, right? You're just taking them through this process of like agreeing, reframing, and then redirecting or repeating. But of course, the situation here is, think about what stage you're at in this process, and also, what you've just had a conversation about. Okay, and if you do this stuff right, then R turns to ah, right? And this isn't like a pirate, right? This is more like a curious kind of R. So it's like ah, if you think of it that way, right? If you think of it of ah. Because I think that a lot of this is just about curiosity. It's just about being curious. And so if you do this process right, you get the G at the end, right? And you get the sale. Okay.